She said, "If you're gonna be this quiet, maybe you should just leave." I nodded and walked out without a word. She laughed with her friends until the waiter returned, holding what I'd left behind. I'm Jake, 29, and I've been with my girlfriend Melissa for 3 years. 3 years of what I thought was building something real. We met at a mutual friend's birthday party, hit it off immediately, and within 6 months we were talking about moving in together. She was funny, ambitious, worked in marketing, and had this way of making me feel like I was the only person in the room. Until recently, when I started feeling like I was invisible. It started about 4 months ago. Melissa joined this new social circle through her work, a tight group of about 6 people who went to trendy restaurants, posted everything on Instagram, and seemed to have inside jokes about everything. At first, I was happy she was making friends. She'd always complained about feeling lonely in the city. But then, the invitations started coming less frequently for me, and when I did tag along, I felt like a ghost. The night everything fell apart was supposed to be a celebration. Melissa's friend Amanda was getting engaged, and they'd planned this big dinner at some upscale Italian place downtown. Melissa told me to dress nice, that it was important I made a good impression. I wore the navy blazer she'd bought me for Christmas, showed up on time, brought a bottle of expensive wine for the table. From the moment we sat down, I knew it was going to be bad. Melissa squeezed in between Amanda and another girl named Bree, leaving me at the end of the table next to some guy I'd never met who spent the entire appetizer course on his phone. I tried joining conversations, but every story I started got talked over. Every joke I made landed flat or got ignored entirely. About an hour in, Melissa was telling this elaborate story about a disastrous client meeting that somehow turned into comedy gold. Everyone was laughing, leaning in, completely engaged. I tried to add context. I'd heard this story before, knew some details she was leaving out, and she literally held up her hand to stop me mid-sentence. "Babe, I'm telling the story," she said, not even looking at me. Her friends giggled. I sat back, picked at my pasta, watched her perform for this audience like I wasn't even there. Then it happened. Amanda was showing off her ring, passing it around the table, and when it got to me, I made what I thought was a light-hearted comment. "Wow, that's beautiful. Must have cost more than my car." Dead silence. Then Bree smirked and said, "Well, some of us have higher standards than others." The table erupted in laughter, not polite chuckling, actual cackling. Melissa was laughing too, covering her mouth but not hiding it. I looked at her, waiting for her to say something, to defend me, anything. She just shrugged and whispered, "Don't be so sensitive." I sat there for another 20 minutes in complete silence. Not sulking. I genuinely had nothing to say to these people anymore. My chest felt tight, and I kept thinking about all the times over the past few months where Melissa had made me feel small in front of them. The comments about my simple job as an accountant, the way she'd correct my grammar at dinner parties, how she'd started saying "we" when talking about her friends' plans, and "I" when talking about ours. Finally, Melissa leaned over. Her voice was low, but I heard every word perfectly. "If you're going to be this quiet, maybe you should just leave." I didn't argue, didn't defend myself. I just looked at her for a long moment, nodded, and stood up. I pulled out my wallet, took out my credit card, and walked straight to the front where our waiter was standing by the host station. "Hey man, I need you to do me a favor," I said quietly. "I'm paying for the entire table. Everything, drinks, food, dessert if they order it. But I need you to wait exactly 5 minutes after I leave before you tell them. Can you do that?" He looked confused but nodded. I handed him my card, signed the receipt when it printed, $847.32, and walked out into the cold November air. I sat in my car for a while, hands shaking, not from anger, but from this strange sense of clarity. My phone started buzzing after about 10 minutes. First a text from Melissa. "Where did you go?" Then another. "Everyone's asking about you." Then, "Jake, Seriously, this is embarrassing. I didn't respond. I drove home, packed a bag, and went to my brother's place across town. Update 1. The texts started flooding in around midnight. Melissa called 17 times. She left voicemails that went from confused to angry to apologetic to angry again. The last one, around 2 a.m., was her crying. I don't understand why you're doing this. You paid for everyone and just left? Do you know how humiliating that was for me? They think I did something horrible. They think we're breaking up. Jake, call me back, please. I listened to it twice, then deleted it. The next morning, I woke up to a text from Amanda. Hey, I don't know what's going on with you and Mel, but thanks for dinner. That was really generous, even though things got weird. Generous. Like I was some benevolent third party and not the guy they'd spent 2 hours treating like garbage. Melissa showed up at my brother's apartment on Sunday afternoon. I watched from the window as she knocked, waited, knocked again. My brother asked if I wanted him to answer. I said no. She left after about 15 minutes. Monday, I got a long email. The subject line was, "Can we please talk about this like adults?" The email itself was a masterpiece of deflection. She was sorry I felt disrespected. She didn't realize I was so upset. Her friends didn't mean anything by their jokes. I was overreacting by leaving. Paying for dinner was a manipulative power move that made her look bad. Not once did she say she was wrong. Not once did she acknowledge how she'd treated me. I replied with one sentence. I think we need space. I'll come get my things next week. Update 2. She didn't take that well. She called my mom. My mom called me, concerned, asking what happened and saying Melissa seemed very distressed. I gave her the short version. My mom was quiet for a moment, then said, "You know, I've been biting my tongue for a while, but that girl has always treated you like you're lucky to be with her." That hit harder than I expected. Melissa started texting mutual friends, spinning her version of events. According to her story, I'd gotten irrationally jealous of her friendships, thrown a tantrum at dinner, and abandoned her in public. She was the victim. I was controlling. 2 friends reached out to get my side. I told them the truth. They both responded with some version of, "Yeah, that tracks, honestly." Wednesday night, I went back to our apartment when I knew she'd be at her weekly spin class. I packed methodically, clothes, books, my grandfather's watch from the dresser, the coffee maker she never used but I loved. I left the blazer she'd bought me hanging in the closet, left the spare key on the counter. I was walking out with my last box when she came home early. She must have skipped class. "Jake, wait!" "Please." I stopped, turned around. She looked exhausted. No makeup, hair in a messy bun, yoga pants, and an oversized sweater. For a second, she looked like the girl I'd fallen for 3 years ago. "I'm sorry," she said. "I mean it. I was awful that night. My friends were awful. I got caught up in, I don't know, trying to impress them or something. It was stupid." "It wasn't just that night," I said. "It's been months, Melissa. Every time we're with them, you treat me like I'm in the way, like I'm not good enough for your new life." "That's not true. You told me to leave. At dinner, you literally told me if I was going to be quiet, I should leave." She flinched. "I didn't mean..." "You did, and I did what you asked. I left, and then I made sure you didn't have to worry about the bill or looking cheap in front of your friends. And somehow I'm still the bad guy." She started crying. Not the pretty kind, the real, ugly kind. "I don't want to lose you." "You already did," I said. "You just didn't notice." I left. This time, I didn't look back. Final update. It's been 2 months. I'm living in a 1-bedroom in a quieter part of town. I adopted a dog from the shelter, a 3-year-old mutt named Rookie, who sleeps at the foot of my bed and doesn't care if I'm quiet. Melissa texted me a few times in the first few weeks. Apologies, questions about my family, a weird one asking if I wanted my half of the couch. I kept my responses short and practical. Eventually, they stopped. I ran into Amanda at a coffee shop last week. She was with someone new, not Bree. She waved, came over, apologized for that night. Said Melissa had been going through something and that the friend group had mostly disbanded anyway. Too much drama. I nodded politely and said it was good to see her. My brother asked me yesterday if I regretted walking out. I told him no. The only thing I regret is staying quiet for so long before that night. I should have spoken up months earlier. Should have told Melissa how I felt instead of shrinking myself to fit into her world. But I'm glad I walked out when I did. I'm glad I paid that bill. Not as some grand gesture or revenge play, but because it was the last thing I did in that relationship on my terms. I chose when to leave. I chose how to leave, and I left knowing I'd tried to be the bigger person even when I didn't owe anyone anything. Rookie just nudged my hand with his nose. I think it's time for a walk. Edit 1. A lot of people are asking what the $847 was for. Appetizers, entrees, 3 bottles of wine, cocktails, and they ordered tiramisu for the table after I left. Worth every penny to never sit through another dinner like that. Edit 2. Someone asked if Melissa ever admitted she was wrong. She said she was sorry I felt that way, which is not the same thing. That tells you everything you need to know.